Minnesota politicians refused to pass legislation that would make it easier for landlords to remove squatters, and they did pass legislation that would make it easier for illegal aliens to obtain housing. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's coming out of the state of Minnesota. And as I have mentioned many times before, Minnesota is going far, far left, okay? They don't believe in property rights up there, and they're trying to see if they can turn a little piece of the Midwest into California or New York, okay? So in their minds, this whole squatter issue, the squatter issue that, by the way, I've been bringing up as a very important property rights issue for the last several years that I've had my YouTube channel, well, they're saying it's a right-wing conspiracy theory, okay? They're saying that, oh, the squatters, it isn't a problem at all. This is just something that the right-wingers are bringing up because they're trying to get votes. Well, you know what? I've been bringing up this issue for a long time because this is a major issue for landlords, and it always has been. Okay, and these squatter rules that are on the books, you know what? They demonize property owners and say that we are evil and that we should have to go through an eviction process if we want to remove some piece of garbage who is sitting in our property who should be charged with trespassing. Okay, so you know what? This is not a right-wing conspiracy issue. This is a problem that has been happening for years on end. And you can go all the way back to the very first year I created this channel back in 2020, okay? And when I was bringing up stuff about the eviction moratoriums, I was also talking about this very same issue. And it goes beyond that, okay? It goes, you can look up very, very old articles and newspaper stories, right, about this very issue, okay? This is not a right-wing conspiracy theory because this has happened for a long time. These laws have been in place for a very long time, and they need to be abolished. They just need to be abolished. The rules that are in place right now, what they do is they make it very, very difficult for landlords and property owners and to remove people from their housing who are not tenants. Okay, they're not tenants. And it makes it very hard for landlords to remove tenants as well. But you know what? People who are not tenants are causing big issues. And, we can just focus on our attention on these people with fake leases, people who claim to be tenants who, oh yeah, I'm renting this place. You know what? That's a bunch of garbage, okay? And all you should need is a sworn affidavit from the property owner or the, property owner's staff or whatever saying that this person is not a tenant, that they are committing fraud, they're in here trespassing, and the police should theoretically come and remove them. But that is not what's happening. That is not what's happening, not just in places like Minnesota, but it's happening in even places like Missouri or Nebraska or, much more conservative places where you think, oh, well, I got property rights. I got property rights here. This is a landlord-friendly place. And no, it's not. Okay, that's exactly why Florida and Georgia have worked to enact laws that will enable property owners to get these people removed immediately. Okay, because this is not a right-wing conspiracy theory. It's happening a lot more often. And, if it's just a conspiracy, oh, there's no evidence that this is happening except for the fact that, I just did a video on a squatter removal SWAT team in Las Vegas, Nevada. Now, if this is not actually happening, if this is just a figment of our imagination, why are there whole businesses whose sole job is to remove squatters? Okay, the guy out in California, who removes squatters from properties. Okay, the SWAT team in Nevada that removes squatters. Why are this is not some isolated incident. What kind of, they're gaslighting us. They're saying, oh, no, this isn't a real problem. You're just making this up just to, yeah, okay, whatever. Why has this been going on for so long? Give me a freaking break, okay? Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm on a rant. I haven't even gotten into the article yet. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Do you think this is a right-wing conspiracy theory? Do you think that squatters invading properties and taking them over and not leaving, and the landlord having to go through the civil eviction process. This is something I've been talking about for years. Do you think this is suddenly a right-wing conspiracy theory? Yeah, it's making the news a lot more often now. And I credit that to that case out of New York where the lady was actually arrested for trying to remove squatters from her property, okay? I credit that story for this, becoming a lot more mainstream, and that for a lot more people picking this up. And yeah, it's a lot of people who are on the more conservative news side who are picking this story up. And the reason is because the people on the left wing, they don't care. They don't give a crap about property rights. They want to turn us into a communist country. So yeah, they are going to gaslight you and tell you that, oh, you're imagining things. This isn't a real problem. Meanwhile, us landlords, we know that this has been an issue for as long as time has existed, okay? We need to get rid of these stupid squatter laws, okay? We need to get rid of them. We need to allow the police to be able to arrest these people immediately, okay? And we cannot have squatters just taking advantage of the system. Anyway, let me get into this article. It's talking about what's happening up in Minnesota. And they you know what? The squatter law, that isn't even the only bad thing they got going on up there. But anyway, let me get into it. This article is coming from the MinnesotaReformer.com, and it says, Senate passes tenants' rights legislation. GOP senator fixates on squatters. Oh yeah, the GOP senator is fixated on squatters. You know what? I am glad that somebody out there is willing to stand up for property rights. Yeah, you know what? It might not seem like it's a big problem until it hits you. And as a landlord, as a person who owns multiple properties, okay, it's not just my personal private residence. My properties sometimes are sitting empty for weeks as I turn over the property, getting ready for the next tenant. And I do not want, I am more likely to be taken advantage of than the average person because I own so many properties. So if you're a property owner and you have, 2, 3, 10, 100 houses out there, you are more likely to face this issue than the average person. That's why I say, hey, you know what? This is an important issue to landlords, okay? And then the average person who owns just their own single family house, they might never face this issue, but it doesn't matter if it happens to one person or if it happens to 1,000 people. It's still wrong. It is still the same crime is being committed. It's like saying that, oh, well, just because these rich landlords every once in a while get taken advantage of, it's not a real problem. Well, that's a bunch of garbage. It's a bunch of garbage. Anyway, let's get into the article. The Minnesota Senate passed a tenants' rights bill Monday, including measures that would give tenants the right to organize, codify renters' rights to call emergency services without retaliation, outline remedies for tenants who can't move into their apartments on time due to construction, and more. The legislation would also make it easier for victims of violence to terminate a lease or get an eviction expunged from their record, and would create penalties for landlords who unlawfully release sensitive information about a tenant who is a victim of violence. I want to say so much about all of these laws, right? I've made videos about little specific, about every single thing that they passed, right? I have made videos about all of it. But you know what? That isn't the topic of this video. The topic is the part about the squatters. And I'm going to skip down to that part, okay? So, I might bring up these other issues in a future video because, there's a lot to be said. But anyway, let me get down to the part about, the squatter issue because, you know what? I can't stand the gaslighting. I can't stand the fact that they're claiming this isn't a real problem, okay? GOP senator, without evidence, alleges immigrants are stealing homes. Senator Steve Drazkowski, a Republican from Mazeppa, offered an amendment to strengthen property owners' protections against squatters, people living in a home without the owner's knowledge or permission, which has become a talking point in right-wing media in recent weeks. We even have one individual on video that is telling people how to squat in order to get access to housing adversely from someone who actually owns the house, Drazkowski said, pointing to immigration as the source of the alleged problem. Yeah, I covered that video. I covered that illegal alien talking about how to squat, telling other illegals to come in here and just take houses, okay? And you know what? This could be a problem. Now, I'm not saying that illegal aliens are the ones who are doing the majority of squatting, okay? The majority of people doing squatting are U.S. citizens, people born here, or legal immigrants, right? But, you know what? That could become a problem going into the future. Regardless, if we don't tighten up our laws, no matter who is squatting from us, it's going to be a huge problem for the property owners. And you know what? Them claiming that this conspiracy theory nonsense, you know what? It just frustrates the hell out of me. It frustrates the hell out of me because it makes it seem like we're just a bunch of nut jobs and we don't know what we're talking about. So yeah, I can't stand that. Ugh. It says, I'm going to skip down a little bit here so that they can kind of go over the amendment that they wanted to include as part of the laws, but, failed, of course. It failed because, in Minnesota, they have a Democratic majority and they don't care about property rights up there, okay? They care about importing as many immigrants into the state as possible for some reason. Anyway. In Minneapolis, squatters took up residence in a Stevens Square apartment complex last year, Fox 9 reported. Officials attributed a fire at a vacant Minneapolis apartment building last week to squatters. But there is no evidence that squatters are taking Minnesotans' homes. And there is also no evidence that any of the Minneapolis squatting incidents involved immigrants. So, they say, there's no evidence that squatters, listen. There are plenty of squatter incidents out there. Now, they might not be reported as squatter incidents, or the landlord might have had to take the person to civil court in order to evict them, right? And see, that's part of the problem. If they consider a squatter to be an actual tenant, and then a landlord has to take them to civil court in order to get that squatter up out of the property, then they might say, well, that person wasn't a squatter, they were a tenant. Well, yeah, no wonder you don't have any statistics for squatters, because you were classifying them as actual tenants when they weren't, okay? So how do we prove that a person is a squatter when you're not taking our word for it? You're making us go to court. You're making us go through the eviction process, okay? So that you get to hide your statistics and act like this isn't really a problem. And then the few incidents where, they do actually classify the person as a squatter, you say, oh, well, these are just isolated incidents. What a joke. I don't want this video to go on too long because I am just ranting and ranting. So I'm going to put a link to this article in the description down below. I want you to tell me what you think in the comments section of them suggesting that this is just a conspiracy theory, that this isn't really a problem, that, this is very isolated, I think that they are just terrible people, okay? They're terrible people. And they're trying to make us look stupid, but the truth is going to be out there, okay? People are figuring out the truth on their own because they can't trust these media sources. They're getting on the internet, they're doing their own research, and they have their own personal experiences. And this video, my channel, is talking about the personal experiences of actual landlords and not of a bunch of politicians.